Since from the weekend,
Mhm.
I know that what we went through and experience can be applied to help our clients.
Mhm.
And I'm sort of trying to figure out how I might do that in the context of, say, an hour session.
I would pick let me pull up the class and I'll walk you through. Let me use Sway just to bring up the thing from Letty. Okay. Okay, so if we go through and look, ones to nail just right off the bat and like to consistently look would be number one, the thing with the autonomic nervous system. That would be huge. Mental stress, you know, if they have work that's very stressful, you could address it, but it needs to be addressed in everybody, but it doesn't have to be the first thing. Usually with mental stress, I go to that when they seem to be non-responsive to like any kind of treatment, not just like what you're doing, but like they've gone to the doctor, they've gone to a physical therapist, you go down the list and their body's just not responding. Sometimes the mental stress can be so bad. It's like what I was talking about with the dyslexia, where like for me, it starts flipping things in my body or flipping my responses to things. And so that one doesn't have to be right off the bat, but you always want to check in with inflammation, which is number 3. Another one that you want to check on kind of everybody is deepening the breath. You want to go through and make sure that the breath is deep and regulated. They're not breathing short and rapid, because even if you go through and you do some work on them and their breath is short and rapid, they're just going to undo it, or it's not going to last very long, because the breath, it's not just that the breath like makes you feel anxious and a little stressed and magnify the things that are in the solar plexus. It literally will throw off your nervous system. Like it will throw off how the nervous system kind of does a back and forth between different parts of that system, and like from the environment, how it like radiates things out and then takes information in. It throws all those things off. So the breath is one of those ones that's key.
Okay.
The gut, again, kind of a judgment call. Pain processing, I find that most people have some need of that, but again, that could be a judgment call. Mugwort technique, just because it will help facilitate a deeper healing or a deeper process of whatever other modality you're doing, that could be one that you do every time. And so, the other ones, trying to go through brain fatigue, cerebral spinal fluid. The other ones I would just work in when you see
Occasionally.
fit in different types, but like right off the bat, check the autonomic nervous system, check the breath.
Inflammation and mugwort technique.
In the mugwort technique. I mean, I would like just start with those 3. And it
Okay.
doesn't even mean you're going to do all 3, but you would just go through and with scanning, you can go like, okay, scanning the level of sympathetic activity versus parasympathetic. And most people are going to have a significant depletion in parasympathetic activity. Almost everybody does.
Maybe
It's like kind of key to, we live in a time where things are just way too overstimulating. Like 20 years ago wasn't quite the issue that it is now.
so. Maybe that's my real question. What prompts would I use to energetically scan for each of these?
For the autonomic activity, you can scan it from the forehead. I actually do it from the back head, but down like at the base of the skull. but you're evaluating the level or strength of the sympathetic nervous system versus the parasympathetic for autonomic function. And then mugwort technique I would just do because it allows for greater release, but you can scan for the level of congestion in the arms and legs. Then the breath, you can just evaluate through tension in the diaphragm, or if the solar plexus is congested. You can do it, you can evaluate from the spine, but I find it's harder because if it's really congested, it gets really compacted and it's really hard to evaluate there. So you can just look at, scan for tension in the diaphragm. You're kind of scanning not the solar plexus, but like kind of like if you were to stick your hand in the solar plexus and scan up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so then going back to my question, those three that you mentioned are the ones that you would do consistently or regularly, depending on how often they're coming and how much time we have.
Yeah.
Is there ever...
You can get it down to where it's 15 minutes. It's not like going to take up a whole session.
Right, and that's what I was going to say. My guess is it's about 20 to 25 minutes based on class, but with practice, probably 15 minutes each. Okay.
Yeah, you could do it pretty quick. And if you're having them in person, have them dab the mugwort on the arms, have them inhale a little lemongrass, then have them inhale a little hyssop or something. And while they're doing that, sweep their diaphragm, and in 10 minutes, you've covered a lot of ground.
And then don't even necessarily do the awareness part of the protocols.
If they have a significant issue, I would, but if you're just trying to augment something else that you're doing, just hit it like quick and move on.
Okay. Is there any particular situation you might see us doing all of those for one person?
When somebody's not responding to, like they're not healing or they're not responding to any sort of treatment, these are like, if you hit these, usually they'll start getting better.
And I don't know if Tracy's still on the call, but Tracy's a good one for this, in that the way she described herself to me during her first session, I've been to every doctor,
Right.
I've done every modality, I've tried everything, even the stuff no one tries, and nothing's changed the pain.
Nothing's
The pain's
working,
here,
yeah.
It's constant, it never goes away.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so what would that have done in her case had I had this tool at that time?
Well, that there's endometriosis. I mean, it could help with that, but like something like that does need to be addressed pretty directly.
Pretty specifically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
It still would have helped, but you know, like these don't necessarily like cure everything, but it makes the body calmer so that it becomes easier to see. Like you start just kind of making things right. And then as you
yes.
get everything right, you go, that is still a problem. You know what I mean? Where when the body's like not in a very good place, there's just a bunch of problems and it's hard to make sense out of it all. So as you start to go through and unwind it, you know, the person may feel better, but then as time goes by, it's like, you know, this particular area is still an issue. Then it becomes easier to address it specifically rather than trying to deal with a whole bunch of issues at once.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the things I remember about doing pranic healing is that after a session, no matter what the person came in for, 95% of the people felt better and different. They couldn't put their finger on it. And,
Yeah.
You know, that early win gets people coming back, which
Right.
then gives the proper time to address what the real issue is.
Right. And, you know, just because they feel better doesn't necessarily mean that the issue got addressed, but
Right.
that stress got released and they're breathing better, they're more relaxed. it makes it easier to go through, even with that, to treat the more serious problem. You know,
Yes.
the thing that like I always like to say about stuff like this is when somebody's really frustrated with like something going on in their body, some little successes make it easier to like have a longer term strategy. So if you like, okay, they're sleeping a little better, they're breathing a little better, they feel a little more relaxed, they feel a little less stressed. It starts to become easier to go, okay, now we're going to tackle this big long term problem.
Okay. And now
I
with
think that's
the,
where you're going with it.
yes, yeah, it's what's the early win proposition to show people that, yes, this can be beneficial
Yeah.
and give us time to address what the root problem is and head towards a solution for it. So I
I would
like
say
that.
balancing the nervous system and deepening the breath usually will get people's attention.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, in Tracy's case, where we're doing the work for endometriosis, would mugwort technique help that?
Yeah.
Too? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So that gives us,
Mugwort technique would help, and she does have a bit of an imbalance in the autonomic nervous system. It's not horrible, but there's some there.
yeah, I think some of that has to do with the pain. It's constant.
Pain will put you in that place very easily, very,
Right.
very
So,
easily.
okay. So that in her specific case, that gives me a balance. Oh, Tracy has another